Hey there, welcome to episode 139 of the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program. I am your host, Managing Director of the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, Dan Hugo. We are recording this at 1:04 p.m. Pacific Time here in the Greater Vegas area. On Tuesday, October 14th, 2025, we normally publish sometime early Tuesday, so pretty close. Today's title and topic, Smarter City Hackathon 2026. Thinking ahead for next year. If you're not familiar with the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, or perhaps this is your first time listening to the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program, we are a Nevada nonprofit corporation. We were founded in June of 2022, June 16th, if I recall. We obtained our 501c3 determination later that year. So we've been retroactively a 501c3 public charity since June of 2022. Our purpose statement is to enable and encourage ideation, innovation, and implementation to make our communities better. We're a completely 100% civic volunteer-driven organization. I don't get paid. Nobody does, not for working with the foundation anyway. There's a business model that involves spinning off our initiatives and monetizing and otherwise funding those. I've talked about this in previous episodes, but we are an all-volunteer organization, including producing this audio program. We renamed from Code for Vegas when we determined that too many people who do not consider themselves coders were not participating. The answer to, I'm not a coder, can I still participate, should be yes. So we renamed to Innovate for Vegas Foundation because innovation takes many forms. Anyone can innovate. Hopefully, wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a one long sentence summary, which I'll read to you, and a couple of links for today's episode. There are two. I've cut it down to two in every episode about our organization, 2 links, and then there are 3 links for today's episode. So we'll run through those very quickly, and then we'll get on with the show. The Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program, which is produced weekly and publishes on Tuesdays. We've been known to have guests, by the way, but it's been a while. So this is mostly about what we're up to and what we have planned. On with the show then. Show notes, the summary. Personally, I would like to see a return of the Hackathon here in Vegas in any form. Some for public projects and whatnot, others coincident with our initiatives as we used to have, open for anybody and visible to everybody. The links for today's episode, Innovate for Vegas activity website. That's our longest living website, innovateforvegas.org, Innovate F-O-R Vegas, no space, period, O-R-G, innovateforvegas.org. You can learn more about what we're working on and who's working on what and so on. Always a work in progress. You can find links to this audio program on that homepage. Innovate for Vegas Foundation is you can call it our business website. Remember, we are a Nevada nonprofit corporation. So Innovate for Vegas, Innovate F-O-R Vegas, period, foundation, the whole word, foundation, is where you will continue. It's still a work in progress. Everything is a work in progress. Everything on the internet is always under construction. We know that, right? You'll find our business stuff, our board of directors, our the base document for our contributing policies, code of conduct, etc. Our bylaws will make its way up there. There's a chain. Well, we can put it up there as is, but once we seat our board, one of these days we'll get the bylaws updated and ratified, put them up there, and so on and so on. So the Innovate for Vegas Foundation website, the business, the 990 tax filing coming up any moment, which we do every year as a public charity, etc., etc. Why 2 websites? Well, it's 2 sides of the same coin. If you're more interested in volunteering and working on projects or learning about our initiatives or just seeing what we're up to, innovateforvegas.org. If you're curious about the business aspect of our nonprofit, legal filings and so on, innovateforvegas.foundation. They cross-link anyway. This podcast audio program production also appears on innovateforvegas.foundation. So you can't go wrong. Today's episode, we are talking about hackathons, the Sprint Book, which I've referred to before, www.thesprintbook.com. It's a book authored. I don't think it was a Google book, but it was authored by 3 Google people. What they learned at Google or maybe elsewhere about organizing, orchestrating, and making use of innovation sprints, or what could be an internal hackathon. It's an interesting book. I read it a long time ago, but it's a good book, worth a read. And then there are some other resources on the website that might be interesting. So check that out if you're interested in the general notion of, I like to call it like ticking clock or time constrained, highly focused, fast paced development efforts, collaboratively usually. What is a hackathon? Well, of course, we like to use Wikipedia here. So the Wikipedia link for hackathon. Hackathon is a portmanteau of hack in a positive sense, and a marathon. It's can be grueling. Usually, it's about 2 days for a typical student-oriented hackathon. College students, sometimes high school students, young people of all ages, perhaps. We'll get into that in a moment. Hackathon. And then smart city. What is a smart city? There's probably one definition of smart city for every person. It kind of depends. It's like the elephant story. Depending on where you grab onto a city, it could be smart in different ways. So the Wikipedia page for smart city. And as is always the case with Wikipedia, if you begin your quest for knowledge about hackathons or smart city at Wikipedia, you're better off. It should always begin there, not end there. Nothing against Wikipedia, but it's a good start. On with the show. What is a hackathon? Oh, I forgot to mention, I said wherever you find this audio program. We are on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, the Amazon Podcasts, of course, Spotify. There's an RSS feed. We might be on iHeartRadio. I really got to check that. The idea is to get the audio programming out far and wide. The nice thing about the YouTube channel, free transcripts, so you can always follow along if you can't hear what I'm saying. Some people want to avoid hearing what I'm saying anyway. So you can check out the transcripts auto-generated on YouTube. With the advent of so much AI all around us, we'll try to also have our own version of that. That's someday nice to have. But we do have at least the beginnings of accessible programming thanks to YouTube. So links on our website for that to read on for other links and so on. So it's right under the podcast player, which appears on our homepage. So what is a hackathon? Very briefly, a hackathon is a concerted effort to consider a problem or a challenge, often in a group or as a member of one or more teams. I should say a member of one or more teams, usually, with a ticking clock and sometimes light competition among participants, usually between teams, unless you're on a team of people who want to compete against each other, perhaps. Ideally, this will be fun and educational and undertaking. Maybe some good ideas will come of it. Usually, some interestingness emerges. Maybe the beginnings of next steps. And if you did not notice yet, I have not said anything about apps or laptops or coding. Often the reflexive response to, what do you think about a hackathon? Oh, we'll send you to the IT department, or, everything is always computers first, tech first, coding first, but that absolutely doesn't need to be the case. There is such a thing as a private hackathon. These are sometimes called sprints or innovation sprints, not to be confused with the variations on an agile sprint or similar, though there may be some conceptual overlap. This is really about stepping outside of normal workflow for the day-to-day projects and project work at an office or workplace. But a hackathon, by that name, is usually open for participation by just about anyone. It's usually not private, usually public. Whatever the specific rules are, maybe there are some parental permission requirements involved if it's for younger people. In-person participation only sometimes virtual, sometimes both, and so on. It all depends. Many people, a lot of ideas, a lot of creative problem solving, along with some fun, hopefully fun, usually some snacks, sometimes sponsored meals. There should be food trucks at hackathons, that's my opinion. A mild sense of competition and that ticking clock to keep the hackathon flowing. even if it's not a competition between or amongst participants. It's participants. There should always be a competition with the clock. There could be prizes sometimes. Often there's some sort of judging. Just if for no other reason than so that everybody can take a look at what other people worked on. And but it all depends. It all depends on the nature of individual hackathons. Sometimes hackathons have a theme, like water conservation or neighborhood safety, or NASA has their annual Space Apps Challenge, which actually has some non-app challenges. That is, you don't have to develop an application or write code of any kind. So they have those in the mix. When we facilitated in 2023, one of the challenges was to create a presentation about, I cannot remember what it was, but it wasn't actually technical. It was much more about accumulating information and presenting it in a useful way. So it was really more creative, more creation of visuals and an audio program, speaking, and so on. So it was not really coding at all. You certainly would use a presentation application and create what we call a slide deck. But otherwise, it was not coding. It was thinking and being creative. Imagine that. So yeah, they're still using some tech in there. But and the NASA Space Apps Challenge is a global challenge, so you're not all in the same room. So some aspects of it are going to be virtual and digital and so on. But there is something for most people who want to participate in an event like that. And that's, you never know where ideas are going to come from. So try not to keep people from participating. A theme can help to make an event more interesting for some, but on the other hand, a general hackathon may be around using some new thing to see how people use it. And it's sort of like a theme, but different. The theme is try out this new whatever it is, right? And do whatever you want with it. And those are actually fun. You never know what you're going to get from that. Or it could be a big free-for-all, just an excuse to get people gathered to be creative, maybe innovative. Then there are events with more structure, like Startup Weekend. We aren't going to cover all the possibilities here, though. But Startup Weekend is arguably a hackathon, but it's got much more of a, I guess, an agenda or a format. Right? But similar idea. Our hackathons, our foundation started off with a hackathon in February of 2022, I think it was. When we first rebooted Code for Vegas, we, as the Code for Vegas Foundation, we used to have a monthly hackathon meetup. The idea being to onboard newcomers, answer questions of the curious or from the curious, and work on our projects, now called initiatives. We were loosely following the notion of a hackathon since we had a co-work space for a contiguous weekend each month for this. So we had it for 48 hours if we wanted it. Anyone could stay as late as they wanted to, and so on. We were still in our early months at that time. Participation was all over the place. Sometimes 5 people, sometimes a dozen, sometimes 20. That latter group, with many people never having participated in a hackathon or only barely familiar. So that latter group of the uninitiated was sometimes confused, thinking a hackathon, from what they've heard or they had heard at that time, is more rigidly designed a thing. Like, oh, aren't we supposed to, fill in the blank. This is not the case, which was an indicator back then that if we wanted to branch out from code only, we needed to make sure hackathon meant something bigger and more laden with possibility than what people have heard or had preconceived notion of what a hackathon is or is supposed to be. So yeah, I've basically called it a time constrained ideation session, brainstorming session, and then you actually do stuff. But what it is about, that's gonna be up to you. It doesn't have to be code at all. The sprint book, while aimed at workplace sprints more so than hackathons, has some interesting resources. The website in particular. The book, as far as I'm aware, is not available for free on that website. They have links to purchase it, but I think I've seen the sprint book available online. So you'd be purchasing a physical copy if you wanted to support the effort. In fact, I just paused there. I did a quick look, and I don't want to advocate for this, but you can find free, gratis. No, not free, not knowingly given away. If I recall, the book is not expensive. It is, the 3 authors are on the cover of the book. It says from Google Ventures. So I guess it's arguably a Google related publication. of this book, but it's an interesting book. It's worth flipping through. Get it at the library. The library is the great unused resource of the 21st century, perhaps. But yeah, so spending a weekend on ideas and so on, and there are no rules going into it. The hackathon organizers can make the rules for that particular event, which is usually a fun idea. The Sprint book, though, worth checking out, or you can start at that Wikipedia link. The key thing is the key thing is to design a hackathon so there is enough time to accomplish something, and that each participant knows they are not supposed to complete a full solution or ship a product, but ideate and maybe implement a demo or very basic prototype or similar. And that can depend. If there's a 3D printer and you want to have a prototype for a little widget, great. Are you going to be shipping the product tomorrow? Absolutely not. That's not the idea. The idea is to run wild with ideas or discuss and perhaps understand a problem better. Some hackathons can be just talking. I know that sounds crazy, but that's possible. All of our initiatives are ongoing. So for our hackathons, it wasn't about being done at the end. It was about making some progress and having the discussion and conversation along those lines. So our hackathon meetup idea was not a traditional, show up, hang out with your friends, talk about some ideas, work on something in some way, whether it's coding or physical, mechanical, whatever it is. And then at the end, after having some pizza and Red Bull or whatever, present what you accomplished to your colleagues and peers, and then that's it. So those are kind of episodic hackathons. Our hackathons had a story arc called the initiative. So they're different, but then again, the core functionality of a hackathon is to gather people to share ideas in some sort of a productive way with that ticking clock. But what is a hackathon supposed to be? It's up to you. Now, smart city. Sounds like an interesting idea. When we first got started, I found the Smart City Forward document commissioned by the city of Las Vegas, which spelled out some ideas they wanted to pursue under the Smart City banner. This was published in about 2018, if I recall, and while I've talked about this specific document previously in these audio programs, 2018 is a long time ago now. The world and the greater Vegas area are both very different this many years later. So it's nice to refer back to. A lot of the ideas in the Smart City Forward document have been implemented, some not well. They check the box, like, okay, we have a Vegas app, Go Vegas, I think it is. Doesn't do much, but it's been around forever. You can probably find it in your what do you call it? Play Store and whatever Apple calls their app store now. Is it the iTunes store? Whatever that is. So you can hunt that down if you really want to. Prepare to be unimpressed. No disrespect to the people maintaining that app. I guess I don't know if they've still updated it recently, but better ideas can be had. To be honest, such documents commissioned by government or non-government agencies usually result in a lengthy, colorful presentation with a lot of tables or charts, bullet lists. In the case of the Smart City Forward document, there were some fairly generic smart city concepts, categories of focus with some suggestions in each, how they would benefit each other and so on. And they were coherent, but they were not particularly innovative. There was nothing really, that would be exciting. An application called Go Vegas. To be honest, the wireless, arguably municipal Wi-Fi, the fact that you can go to downtown Vegas and use I think it's still called Go Vegas wireless Wi-Fi for free is something. So that was also on the list. The Go Vegas branding. Nor did they look at addressing specific issues, if there are any. So again, this was commissioned by probably a consultancy of some sort, and said, oh, smart city. Yeah, we probably have a template here. I mean, we're going to prepare that from scratch for you. But nothing particularly earth-shattering, if I may. The first steps for Smarter City Hackathon in 2026 is to identify some areas where some creativity and innovation might benefit our locals. That's us, we who live here. People who live here in Vegas often just go around doing their thing. They're not aware that this is a global innovation hub, allegedly. Uh, or let us not forget, when we do have a lot of visitors that come here, sometimes a little bit less than last year, sometimes a little bit more. It is possible to consider a hackathon that includes ideas from people visiting, especially if they identify scenarios, gaps, or ideas that are not always noticed by people who live in a place every day. Oh, I never noticed that. Or I don't ride the bus, therefore I don't come from the airport into the greater Vegas, the Strip and downtown and other parts of the greater Vegas area. So these are things that visitors would experience and notice issues with, if any, more so than locals like us. Would a tourist participate in a hackathon in Vegas? Maybe. The odds are against, but there are possibilities. There have been hackathons in Vegas that are specifically aimed at people here for a trade show. Amazon with the AWS Invent, or I'm sorry, reinvent, not AWS Invent, invent, like reinvent. When I worked with Intel, we had a hackathon with them the weekend before the show officially started, or the conference. So something like that could work. There are possibilities. CES coming up, possibilities. But what is a smarter smart city? I'm saying smarter instead of smart. And in fact, I usually refer to what I call a smarter smart city, just in general. So smarter, be smarter. Usually there are some built-in assumptions about what a smart city could be or should be. And while sometimes Blade Runner or the Jetsons might have people asking for flying cars zipping around Vegas or any smart city, the typical smart city has cameras, internet access, public Wi-Fi, air quality monitoring, conservation and sustainability sensors and processes that are visible. So people can have some sense of like, here's how much water we have available. Transit options and visibility, like when is the bus really going to get here so I can get to work? Basically, a smart city is either way into the future, flying cars. Maybe there's going to be some flying cars in the near term. I've been seeing more news and press releases and so on. Flying cars any day now, or based on stuff that has been around for a while that people can imagine and may even wish for, integrated in a way that might work. That is sort of a baseline. Like what is a smart city? Well, I should be able to use Wi-Fi and get on a bus and know where the bus is, the app that tells me, so a lot of stuff that's sort of become the norm. Maybe, though, we can reach beyond the stuff that already exists, but also keep expectations reasonable, something a little bit before flying cars, so that maybe we wait on the Jetsons. And if you don't know what the Jetsons is, it was a cartoon from a while back with flying cars and robots in the home and spacely sprockets and so on, or Blade Runner or the Terminator. Hopefully we don't go that way. You never know. But maybe in these modern times, we look at how AI tools might help and be useful at city scale, how modern sensors and sensor fusion might take advantage of, say, drone imagery with traffic reports and other, the weather. So sensor fusion mixes all these things together and creates a useful analysis, I suppose, of all these inputs, and visibility to keep the people in our locality informed. So, those are just random ideas thrown around. What about emergencies, unexpected and potential tragic events that might be learned from, so that next time, if there is a next time, and we can always hope there won't be, but we will have learned from that last time and improve the response for the next time. So you can have a hackathon all about that, emergency response. When I was traveling for Intel, when I worked in the Maker Innovator Group, the subjects of IoT, remember Internet of Things? Whatever happened to those? Oh yeah, they're just things now. What isn't connected to the internet at this point? And smart cities in the near future would come up now and then. Maker Innovator Group, IoT, smart city, they all taste great together. I would always ask people what they thought made a smart city. And while they usually had a few of the classics to rattle off, I mentioned a few: air quality and traffic are popular, traffic monitoring. How long will it take? And, Google Maps has kind of taken that on with also their acquisition of Waze. So you can keep track of a lot of things if you have a little GPS sensor reporting back to Google in everybody's pocket, or Apple also. Why did they want iPhones to have Google Maps installed? So but well over 80% of the time, I would let the person I was speaking to rattle off these ideas. And then I would say, well, what about the people? 80% of the time, there's no mention of the people in this smart city, this fictitious, fantastic smart city they were describing. If you want to see a great example how that can go very wrong when you forget the people that are in a so-called smart city, emerging smart city, look up Sidewalk Labs when you have a chance and their attempt to drop smart city functionality on Toronto in Canada. Didn't go well. Smarter smart cities probably, maybe, let us just say it. Smarter smart cities should be about the people in those cities or towns or communities or countries, an entire state. You get the idea. So smarter smart cities are not necessarily about traffic and air quality. They're about people and how traffic and air quality impact them and affect them, and how the people impact and affect those things, which means they should be brought into the conversation, those people, much more often than they are. So not only should we not forget about them when we're thinking about smart cities or making smart cities, we should include them. That's us. We should be included in the conversation. We can start there for this one. We can start with bringing people into the conversation. So yeah, smart city sounds like a great idea. Maybe. Sometimes it doesn't. And the Sidewalk Labs instance is in Toronto is an example where maybe some thinking should go into it ahead of time. But there's a long road ahead. Fingers crossed. So city planning factors into some of this. We can wrap this episode on this concept where your city, so this is the last section, where your city or maybe your county, I was going to say country, keeping it clean, maybe your country, basically you have some people in your local government and probably adjacent in some non-government organizations and agencies that look at this stuff all the time, a planning division, etc. They make plans. They publish requests for proposals. There's a budgeting and planning, an environmental impact reporting process, and the whole 9 yards. They may submit something to Public Works to build or to change landscaping or sidewalks or something. So there's a whole process. Most cities go through some similar collection of things day to day, steps to make things happen. Have you ever participated in a survey or outreach in general run by maybe your planning division where you live as they work on maybe a 5-year or 10-year, maybe a 20-year plan? This usually involves planning for parks, water, electricity, public transit, housing, parking. You get the idea. It's where is our city or our neighborhood, our town, our county, where is it heading? How are we going to get there? I have participated in this when I was living in Silicon Valley. The land use and transportation element of the 10-year plan was the focus. So, because the entire plan is thick, it's a bit of a read. But the land use and transportation element, they called it the LUT. It was about exactly what it sounds like. So parks, how the land would be used. There was a move towards more high density housing. So think apartments, condos, condominium buildings. So what do we need to get around if we're going to have more people? There's not going to be so much parking because we're building buildings that take up a lot of space without so much street connecting homes and neighborhoods and so on. So the neighborhoods are inside buildings. How many parking spaces do we need? They were thinking about reducing parking requirements to something like 1.2 spaces per unit, per apartment, per condo. Well, that means not everybody's going to have 2 cars, obviously. So public transit, public transportation, land use and transportation. How is that all going to fit together? There's a lot of Post-it notes. Did I say, have you? No, I didn't. No, I did. Okay, I'm here. There were I confuse myself so easily. So when we were participating, there were colorful Post-it notes for selecting important issues. So they would say, okay, go up to the whiteboard or some easels that had the ideas on them, and you vote for things. So put your, green Post-it note in your first choice and whatever, right? So there's these easels or a whiteboard or a wall with the ideas spelled out on a grid or however they're working through this, and people vote on them, and then you can discuss and so on. So there's some interaction. There were a few meetings in Sunnyvale. Have you ever had a conversation with someone who lives near you and questions arise? Why did they do this? Whatever thing. Why didn't they do that instead? Whatever you're talking about. Why did they make the bus run through this area instead of that area? Similar. The loot, right? Why did they put apartments here instead of over there? Well, this is one example how to influence those decisions by participating in these discussions as a member of the community, the physical community that lives in an impacted or affected area. So you can be an influencer too. Many years ago, I was working on putting together a city plan hackathon for the city of Boulder City. That is officially the name of the place. Boulder City has a City of Boulder City moniker, where we would take the outreach and survey phase and open it up to actual ideation. Like, what do we really need to look at, consider, weigh against other options for opportunity costs, considerations, and so on? What are those things? You can have city staffers work on that stuff, or you can ask people to be involved. That's called co-creation. Then in another weekend hackathon phase, we invite teams to participate in a hackathon of ideas. There would be no expectation that someone would go out and build a park or an apartment complex. But so ideation only, and thoughtful and technical. So a hackathon of ideas, this with city staffers and subject matter experts on hand to consult for the teams. In other words, could we put a 25-story apartment building right here? And someone would probably say, 25 stories is a little tall. Think 4 or 5. Can we move that park across the street? That would conflict with waterways or traffic requirements, etc. Can we add bus routes? Well, we can do it through here, but not through there. There's a school zone. There's a right-of-way requirement here. There, et cetera, et cetera. Do we need those traffic cameras? Somebody will probably say yes, and other people will say no, and then a fight will ensue, perhaps. A fight of words, and we'll get it all on video. Maybe actual answers might be available right there to keep the ideation moving forward, and that would be ideal. And eventually, a few implementable ideas fall out of all this. And either way, the next conversation about this might include something like, oh, I do know why they chose this over that. I was there, and they're using one of our ideas. If you're in a team. Sadly, the Boulder City Hackathon stalled thanks to, you may have already guessed it, ghosting. They simply stopped responding. So we will have to try this out for real in 2026 sometime. So think about it, and we will talk again soon. Thank you for listening to this audio program. In general, thank you for, if you would like to be supportive of the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, it starts with you listening to things like this and then participating. We have office hours, although as I'm recording this today, the office hours on Tuesday, today's office hours are canceled for a scheduling conflict. But generally speaking, we have office hours and initiative meetups. These are both virtual meetings online every week. And those are available on our gatherings calendar, which is published on both of our websites, innovateforvegas.org, innovateforvegas.foundation. And from there, who knows what may come of it. Maybe you want to work on an initiative or join our board or something. You never know. Be a part of it. Thanks for listening, though, and we'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.